in 1997. I remember hacking my first geocaching website, for those of us old enough to remember that. Specialized in SEO, which means I have a love-hate relationship with Google, which is leaning very heavily towards hate in the last couple of years. I'm Dutch, yes, the name doesn't give it away, I know, long story. And as far as my credentials go, I've worked with really big organizations doing their SEO, as well as these small one-man, mom and dad shops. Spectrum. I'm also a contributing blogger and editor for stateofsearch.com. You can catch my rants on a monthly basis if you could be so inclined. One word of warning, there will be a few swear words here, but like I said, love-hate relationship with Google, leading towards hate, so there must be some profanity in there somewhere. Google Plus. I assume everybody here is on Google Plus in one way, shape, or form, otherwise you would be needing to be here. This is Google's fourth attempt at social media. Anybody name the previous three? Wave, that's one, there we go. Buzz, that's two. The third one is where people really struggle. Orchid. Everybody remember Orchid? Still very big in Brazil. We bought it over Google and tried to make it one more bigger thing. Didn't really take off, except in Brazil and some Latin American countries. So, four attempts at social media. Why? Why does Google want to keep hammering on social media? Why is social media so important for Google that they keep just trying it again and again and again until they hopefully get it right? Well, to understand that, we need to understand where search in general is heading. Where it has been heading pretty much in the last 10 years or so. And that means you have to understand what search was, which is information retrieval, the basic model, matching keywords up to queries, determining which result is the most relevant, which Google used to do with link signal, primarily link signal. To where it's heading now, which is the semantic web, understanding the context of a search query, where you are, what you want, what you might be wanting in the near future, what you've done in the past. Because people like me have ruined the game for Google, so I do apologize for that. SEOs in general have made those standard information retrieval signals pretty much obsolete. 2 or 3 years ago, you could have given me any keyword on any website, and within 6 months to a year, we would guarantee the top 3 ranking for you. And we would have stood over that, because it was easy. Google wasn't very smart. I can't do that anymore. It's become hard, because Google's caught on to all those signals. It's ruined the game for me, but then again, we probably ruined the game for Google, so it's some share of the responsibility there. So, the semantic web, understanding the context of a search query, and that means the W's supplemented by the how. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Those aspects of a search query. You know, who are you? As in, what's your search history, what's your interest, what do you like, what don't you like? What are you actually looking for? There's actually just one of the very complex array of aspects that go into a search query. Where are you? Very relevant to how you want your search result to be formatted. When? Specific times a day, days a week, that sort of thing. Why you want it, that's a tricky one, by the way. And how you want it. Usually on your mobile, nowadays also properly formatted on your screen. So how does Google do this? This is what Google Plus has done. Google Plus combined with Android, combined with structured data markup that allows Google to index your web and see this is what this piece of information means. It's a whole different topic, by the way, I won't go into that too much detail. But all those things combined allow Google to give you those semantically rich search results. It's important to understand that Google is late to the party when it comes to semantic search, especially when it comes to the social aspects of search. Facebook's been doing that for years. Facebook graph search, probably heard about that, slowly being rolled out, is basically the search that Google wanted to build with Google Plus. They're not going to get a chance to do that because everybody's taking it. So, Google Plus, Google's secret weapon in the war on social search. And if you are to believe Google's own statistics, it is the fastest growing social network of all time. In the first 24 days, they accumulated 20 million users. By September 2012, they claimed that 400 million users. 500 million by December, I think they're nearing 600 million now. That is, of course, a humongous load of bollocks. It is. Because it's just not true. social is not something you just turn on. The user numbers, forget about them. Everybody who has a Gmail account is considered an active user on Google+. Bollocks. Everybody who is active on YouTube, Google+. Bollocks. Nobody ever uses Google+. It's very interesting to know, to look at how Google presents those numbers. Google says 235 users have posted something in Google+ in the last month. That would imply 235 million active Google+ users. They don't say how often people post, or how often they return, or how long they stay on Google+ as a network. Facebook does. Facebook says 5 hours spent on Facebook. Now that's an interesting matter. 5 hours a week on average on Facebook. That's a long time to spend on a website. That's something worth boasting about. That's 5 hours people spend reading content, sharing, clicking, commenting, liking. But as Google just says, 235 million people have posted something on Google+. That's meaningless, utterly, totally meaningless. Also, I have to admit, there are some users active on Google+. People like me, primarily. Technology geeks, digital marketers, coders. Why are they active in Google+? Because it's the system that's built with them in mind, more or less. This is where I think the biggest one comes in. I'll leave that out for now. A bit of a sidetrack. This all comes about Google's corporate culture, especially in their main offices in Mountain View. It's a university campus for geeks, basically. Making geeks happy, keeping them coding, keeping them churning out cool products. So when they went and did social media for the fourth time, they again put geeks in charge of it. That's the worst thing you can do. Geeks aren't social. Geeks can barely talk to other geeks, let alone normal people. As you know, I was one of them or something. So you end up with a social media site that works for geeks, that has all these things that geeks really like, those little circles and those hangouts and the plus ones, and it makes sense for geeks who are slightly autistic. It just really works. It doesn't work for most people. As a result, you end up with a social network that's populated by geeks. And if your audience as a business, if your target audience are geeks, fine, great. Use Google+, dive into it. Most of us will not be targeting them, so for most of us, actually being active in Google+, sharing content, commenting on plus one, it's a bit of a waste of time. Your audience is not there. Your audience is on Facebook, your audience is on Twitter, your audience might even be on LinkedIn, but not on Google+. So why would you want to do it anyway? Well, that's the carrot and the stick approach, isn't it? Authorship. See that little thing? Or that one? That's nice, isn't it? You get that, an article that you've written, extra little byline there. That's cool, isn't it? That enhances your click-through rate by dozens of percent if you have that. People will love to click on this and will not click on this. Another one. Here's communication. This is nice, isn't it? Yes, this is my own company. Come on, it's a free conference. I have to throw this somewhere. Recent posts on our Google+ page, including our photos, our little map is, etc., etc. That's called authorship. And that's one of the things that Google has thrown at the tech community. Again, here we go, it's again aimed at the geeks, to make it a bit more palatable to be active in Google+. So how do you implement that? How do you get that? How do you get there? Well, you have to do a little bit of coding. Sorry. You have to start with the basics, of course. You have to have a Google+ profile. Get a nice little image, as long as you want to have shown there. Anyway, that's my Twitter profile as well. I put that one there because people tend not to take me too seriously. It's a really good thing. Prevents me from getting sued for libel. So yeah, get a good profile, get a good profile image. Claim your business page. This is very important, by the way. About a year ago, Google merged Google+ with Google Local. Again, they're force-feeding it to us. They're not giving us a choice. You have to use Google+. And in the initial couple of months, it was a bit problematic because businesses that didn't have a Google+ page, and even ones that did, just got given a Google+ page. And for our own company, for example, and a few of our clients, we suddenly had two Google+ pages. We had a Google Maps page, which Google migrated to Google+, and then we had our Google+ business page that we already created. So we had a little duplication there until Google wised up and merged them. So you have to have a business page, which also becomes your Google local page as a result, and get a good profile image there as well. And then it gets a little bit technical. You need to link from your Google Plus profile. So a link from your business page, your web page, to your Google Plus profile. And you have to list the websites that you contribute to on your Google Plus profile. So basically it's a two-way link. If I write a piece of content on, say, the search, for example, there will always be a link there. Look at Barry's Google Plus profile. So Google knows this article is written by that Barry Adams on that Google Plus profile. And because I have it listed in a Google Plus profile, Google knows Barry Adams is a regular writer for sake of service. Ergo, that's the same person, but given that little profile. Which is an interesting one, by the way. Keep that in mind. That's a little thing you added. That this is your Google profile link, and who else equals author is what we put at the end of that. Fun thing is, of course, it's slightly different for your business page. So there's a business page, you're not an author, you're a publisher of content. And instead of having a question mark, you have it as a separate item there. Basically, you add this to your web page as a publisher of content, and everybody who has a website is, by definition, a publisher of content, because everything you publish on your website is published content. And you let Google know, right, that Google page, business page, belongs to me. And again, we link it back to your website. Slightly different implementation, well equals author. The good news is Google isn't too hung up on the implementation and tends to make the connection anyway, as long as you have some form of link from your Google Plus page to your website and vice versa. Google is usually very good at identifying who's who and connecting the dots. So that gets you those nice rich snippets, rich search results. That's part of the carrot of Google Plus. You can also verify authorship. Google Webmaster Tools, again, very handy here, by the way. If you're not using Google Webmaster Tools as a person who owns a website, you are missing an enormous amount of information. It's unforgivable as far as I'm concerned. Get your website verified with Google Webmaster Tools, because it gives you a lot of information on how Google views your website and all aspects of it, any errors that it finds. Allows you to check whether or not you've implemented the markup properly. In this case, yes, we have. Authorship as well. Also, you get authorship statistics in Google Webmaster Tools. That's quite handy. How often a rich snippet is being shown with your profile image on it. And also for which links. And then more popular on the resolution time. Quite handy. Author rank. This more or less flows from authorship in a way that Google has implied it's going to use. But it's almost pretty much confirmed they haven't started using it yet. In theory, it goes like this. An author whose content gets a lot of plus ones and a lot of shares and a lot of comments is considered to be a more authoritative, a more trustworthy author than somebody whose content never gets any social share or likes at all. And as a result, the content from that more authoritative author should rank higher in Google search results. And that author can be independent of where that content is published. Right now, more or less, the website you publish your content on determines how high your content is going to rank, because of the authority that that website has built up. If I put something on say, the search, it gets a lot of visibility in Google search results because it's a very renowned blog, gets a lot of shares, a lot of people tweet about it and link to it, so the content is, by definition, considered to be more authoritative. Whereas if I were to post it on my personal blog and nobody ever comes, click it and search and nobody will ever see it. Author rank tends to remove that part of the equation. The focus is purely on the reputation of the person who has written the content. So that regardless of where you publish it, if you as an author have a high author rank, you call it, your content will rank high in Google search results. Whether it's published on mom and dad's website or on Huffington Post. It's theoretical at this stage, I have to say. It's not yet implemented. But the signs are there that Google is going to implement some form of author at some stage. So you, as a business person who writes content for your website, which I hope you do, should probably keep this in mind as well. Build a bit of an online reputation. You can do that with guest posts and guest blogs as well. Get really good quality content about your industry, about your business, out there on reputable blogs, which will help boost your author rank. So that when you go back to your own blog, your own business website, some of that author rank will hopefully percolate through. Again, it's not active yet, but it will happen in the next 6 months, I can imagine. And then the biggest question of all, do +1s influence rankings? Long answer no, short answer no. The long answer is 30 minutes into this particular Google Webmaster Hangout video, where the question actually gets asked to Matt Cutts, and he, in usual Google speak, in a very elaborate way, says that right now you shouldn't focus too much on +1s to get your content to rank. Fortunately, I'm part of a few SEO networks and private groups who actually test this stuff out on websites with no history, get them just valuable nonsense content written there, get 10,000 people to click on +1 and see what happens to it. The answer is nothing. +1s do not relate to ranking yet, but again, Google has indicated they might use +1 at some stage as a sign of quality of an author. Probably closely related to author ranking somewhere. A +1 from a highly reputable author will count more than a +1 from some Indian somewhere was paid person. +1 buttons all day long. And this was introduced last week actually. Google is introducing a new local dashboard which integrates nicely with +1, with Google Plus in general, which gives small businesses basically one nice overview of parts of their visibility in Google. With the local business listing right here, information about your Google Plus, your AdWords Express. Again, Google is subtly hinting you to spend money with Google. And any offers you might have on the website. So, to summarize, Google Plus is not a social media network. Google Plus is an identity network which allows Google to know who you are and what businesses you're connected to. To get value out of it, implement authorship model. That's who Google Search really will slide with. It's going to be on SlideShare anyway at the end of the day, so you can look it up. You should make some use of Google Plus, if only to get those signals into the Google web algorithm. So by all means, have some automated system automatically publish your blog posts to Google Plus. You can, go all the way with circles and communities and hangouts, but like I said, unless you're targeting geeks, technology geeks, you're not going to get very far in terms of user engagement. It's just not the right target audience. But then again, if you're on Google Plus, you shouldn't do it for the social interaction, you should do it for your search visibility. That's the real beauty of it. That's me. Questions, please. More the merrier. Come on, I get charged out at £85 an hour. This is your time to get me for free.
I had a Google Plus profile with one Google account, and then I created another one with another Google account, and I tried to move them about, move all the stuff from one profile to the other. It did okay, but the existing one's still alive, and I can't kill it. So it's not difficult to do, or is that just...
Yeah, impossible.
It's impossible?
Yeah. That's what you do. You get one shot at building up a good Google account.
Yeah.
And Google decides which account it is, whether it's your Gmail or your YouTube account. You have to be careful with it. You have one master account, as it were, that you use to build up authority and connect all the right profiles and build circles with. If you spread it out far and wide, that's the signal get lost. I wouldn't recommend that.
And you haven't got your Google Plus...
No, because what's the point?
Okay, that's probably my question. Should I bother?
Depends, like I said. Do you publish content? Do you have a blog? Do you want to be seen as an authoritative voice in your industry?
Yeah, but
Then, by all means, do authorship, implement those things, get those boxes checked, and then forget about Google Plus.
okay. So just
For now.
Yeah, for now. Okay.
Google is force feeding it down our throats. We don't have a choice in the matter. They're like, use it, use it, use it. It's Larry Page all the way. We've even implemented a structure in Google's bonus scheme that every new kit, every new software, every new service that comes out of Google has to integrate with Google Plus. And if it doesn't, people will not get their bonus. So all these geeks and engineers are now finding ways, very forced ways to merge things and make it social. It just doesn't work. It's a try. Pity on them.
And that's how you start, how you see it at the moment. And I know the kind of like, but how you see it at the moment.
How I see Google Plus evolve. Background knowledge. I think Facebook graph search is really powerful because what, like I said, what Google is trying to do with Google Plus, Facebook already has with all the information you give to about yourself, what the things you like, what the businesses you're connected to. And Facebook is starting to tap into that Facebook graph search. I think it really depends on how quick Facebook is with developing graph search and getting people to use it, because I think it will start siphoning certain types of search queries away from Google and make people change their search behavior slightly because they can rely on friend recommendations in graph search, which you can't do yet in Google Plus. But Google, like I said, is really hammering on Google Plus and trying to make it work for them because they see this coming and they want to hang on to those search queries. They really desperately want to make a socially rich search environment. I still think Facebook has the edge there because people like spending time on Facebook, whereas nobody actually likes spending time on Google. Yeah, it's hard to predict. You know, the two massive companies with massive budgets trying to do the same thing. It'll be very interesting.
Is that not a move on Google's part from a business perspective?
Of course it is.
But understanding it, you know, they didn't buy YouTube for no reason.
Well, yeah, they
And the
did.
fact that, you know, video apparently is the next big thing.
YouTube,
So integrating those.
YouTube and Google Plus are already fully integrated.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of their strategy to sort of grow that on the back of business. More so
Google's
than-
strategy is basically to make you spend longer on it. That's their strategy. Everything they do is geared to make people spend more time on the internet because that means they can sell more apps. Even the driverless cars are a way to people just sit in the car and be online so they can do more Google searches, do more Google Maps or whatever it is. Get more eyes on apps. That's Google's whole strategy. That don't be evil motto went out the door in 2004 when they went public and became a publicly traded organization. And about that, since then they have not just moral obligation to their shareholders, actually legally obliged to maximize profits for the company. They have to keep growing. They can never be content to sit at a level like we are the default search destination of the internet, we're content with that. No, they can't do that. They have to keep growing. They have to suck up more revenue, become bigger and bigger and bigger until the EU at some stage steps in and slaps them around and breaks them up, maybe.
But buying Motorola as well, so I mean there's something else kicking there in the background too. Buying Motorola,
Oh yeah, Motorola mobility.
yeah. So from a business perspective, I mean, is it a good thing or a bad?
It depends how you define Google Plus. You as a user, you probably love Google. You keep loving them until they really, really cock up. But you are not Google. Google's customers, sorry, you are Google's products. You are what they sell to advertisers. That's the whole model. So they have to keep you happy or at least make you feel somewhat happy to keep using Google. So you come back to Google, they can sell ads for you. Your advertisers are Google's customers. That's the real. Google has a bit of a strange parasitical relationship with the whole internet. That they take content from other websites to feed into the web search. They take all the other users connected to the content and then they take money from advertisers to advertise to those users. They're the ultimate middleman, basically. The value add is not as big as people think it is. They're a connector. The problem with Google Plus and other Google services is that they seem to lose a bit of track that they are that connector and start to believe that they are the end destination. And that's why I think it's going to get clipped at some stage.
I don't think Google communities could use those in any shape or form. I mean, they're very popular and they're pretty useful. Is there anybody, could we create a community in Northern Ireland for in any shape or form that would sort of pick up traction? Is it likely to work?
I don't know. I don't know about you, but if I compare how I use Google Plus, how do I use Facebook. Facebook is so much more intuitive and snappier and nicer. And I spend more time on Facebook than I probably should. Whereas Google Plus, it feels like work. And it feels like a job in itself on Google Plus. And Facebook feels like fun. I told you about the private SEO groups I've got. Most of them are Facebook groups. Because it's easier. It feels nicer, the content sharing is a bit more intuitive. And the whole Google Plus thing, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't click. Might be worth trying them. As long as you're prepared for crickets and tumbleweed for a long time. Lisa?
I'd like to start on do like those top 20 brands in Google Plus. Like, do you include everyone if they're doing Google Plus really well, like Coca-Cola? No.
I mean, HubSpot's a good example because their target audience are geeks. They are a company that sells software to digital marketers. So of course they're moving fast. That's why the target audience is. If you're not targeting digital marketers, what's the bloody point? Yes, a lot of companies have taken the Google Plus box, or a lot of agencies have done it for companies. Just to say, right, we have a nice page, we've got optimized profile image, etc., etc. We've got circles up to Wizard. Maybe even do a hangout once in a while. We're planning to do a hangout, just to take that technology. But the added value is fairly minimal. I think that your mileage may vary. No more questions?
I'm just thinking, I imagine Google must also be panicking now because we've talked a little bit about mobile with, announcements from Facebook now that they're going to bring out, their version of a mobile phone. So because part of the growth you would have thought is with Android phones and Google sort of connectivity with that there could have been a growth market there, but what?
Absolutely. Android is one of the key pivots of Google's strategy going forward. Android, Google Plus, and the semantic map, those are the three pillars where Google is basing its future on. And whether or not Google is panicking about Facebook doing mobile, I'm not so sure yet, because Google knows how hard it is to do mobile. I don't know if any of you ever used the first Android version. It was utter shite. Really, really, really poor. Now about the version 4.5, they've gotten much better, and I say the user interface is better than that on an iPhone, which is saying quite a lot because Apple is very pernickety about the user interface, but I think Android surpassed them on some aspects of that. Again, it's a seamless experience with Android. You log into your Google account and boom, everything's there. Your email, Google Plus, everything's there. Except of course Facebook and Twitter are sort of a separate little entity. Problem is, of course, that's what people want to use, Facebook and Twitter. With iPhone, I think since Steve Jobs has passed away, how do you feel about that? It's a separate topic. But they've sort of lost their mojo. The man was an absolute tyrant when it came to getting things right. And Tim Cook, no matter how good he is, he's just not that dictatorial, I would say. So I think we're going to see a very slow but inevitable decline of Apple. And curious to see what Facebook's going to come up with to fill the gap. It's going to be an interesting couple of years. Ask Norbert Checkmark in his mobile talk later on. He'll probably have some thoughts about that. One more question? Nice on time. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes. need to track up on.
Yes,
I have some copies for you, and actually, you're out for lunch, so I was going to take advantage and see if I can get some more copies. I ended up putting them all on one page, and then we'll just see how it goes. Yeah, ink was just.
No, yeah. Well, what I did, which was really silly, that I went out to yesterday, pressed the button for print, and the fact that the print machine full.
Right.
So when it came back, I used all my hours and there's always a
Thank you.